Hey everyone, it's Congressman Jamie Raskin coming at you from Maryland's beautiful 8th Congressional District with a very special edition of my favorite time of the week, Local Hero. Our local hero this week is the great Ike Leggett, the former Montgomery County executive, and he's a terrific guest on any week, but especially this week because we're still observing African American History Month. So I'm going to take a few moments to ask Ike to reflect on his own career in politics in Montgomery County. And he may or may not like it, but he was a critical, pivotal, catalytic figure in the transformation of Montgomery County, which after all was a place that was entrenched in race segregation for a long time. And of course, Maryland was a state that played a role in slavery as well. We might not always remember that, but we got to remember that. And yet Ike Leggett's political career came at a time when Montgomery County was opening up, and he really helped to open Montgomery County in Maryland up. He served 3 terms as Montgomery County executive from 2006 to 2018. Before that, he was on the county council and as an at-large member played a critical role there in the promotion of civil rights, in the promotion of protection of the ag reserve, and in promotion of housing and good transportation for our people. So for your remarkable career, Ike, as a law professor at Howard, as a captain in the U.S. Army, for your decades of public service, we're going to recognize you this week as a local hero, and we celebrate your tremendous devotion to the people of our state.
Thank you, Jamie. But let me recognize and thank you, because not only you're a local hero, but you're a national hero for our country, for those who really need a voice to stand against the challenges to democracy. And I want to acknowledge that I am so proud that you represent the state of Maryland, but more importantly, proud of the fact that you've been such a stalwart for doing the things that are right. It is really remarkable, your leadership. And I think I want to recognize that and say thank you, because it's so rewarding to see someone standing up as strong as you, and to do it under some very difficult and challenging circumstances. It is somewhat ironic that we are, in fact, in the midst of Black History Month, African American History Month. And if you look behind me, you see an array of awards and books and acknowledgments of leadership over the years. But my life is really a remarkable life that reflects a great deal of the good and sometimes the challenges to this great country. I grew up in abject poverty in the state of Louisiana, one of 13 kids, and lived in a 3-room house, not a 3-bedroom house, a 3-room house with virtually all of those kids. And for me to rise from that depth of segregation to leading one of the great counties in all of America, serving in the military, and many of the other things that you've just described is a remarkable story. That is the good of the American story, the reflection of how people working together, giving someone a helping hand, making certain that we all contribute to our society. Those are the kinds of things that I reflect as a person now looking back over the years, having met Dr. King, involved in the civil rights struggle as a student leader, student government president of the university, to see the remarkable change in this country, but also to recognize that we still have a very, very long ways to go. And so whenever we have Black History Month, whenever we have an opportunity to reflect on that, I end up with mixed reactions about the progress we've made, but the challenges still lie ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, tell us, if you don't mind reflecting for a moment about what it was like personally when you first got into politics and you ran for the county council as a pioneer, and to know about the history of Maryland and Montgomery County, but to be part of the change and what it was like living through that for you and Catherine.
Well, for me, for the most part, I was not one seeking to become an elected public official. I was a person behind the scene helping to write the briefs and all the other things that were necessary in order to advance ahead. And we formed an organization called Surge back in the late 70s, early 80s, with the idea to promote African Americans and other minorities to run for public office in Montgomery County, because at the time we had never elected politically an office holder in Montgomery County. People often say, well, I was the first African-American elected to the council. No, I was the first African-American elected to any significant political position in Montgomery County. Nobody in the General Assembly, no one on the county council, county executives, courthouse team, none of that existed at that point in time. In fact, when I first ran my first race, and here were the numbers at the time, in 85, 86, African Americans made up about 6% of the county's population. Asians were about 3%, and Latinos were about, I think, maybe 4%. And it was difficult to get anyone to run. And so having formed this organization and knowing the needs that we had in the community, I reluctantly decided to run. And believe it or not, in my first race for 6 months, there was no photograph of Ike Leggett running for county council at the time. No photograph at all for 6 months, because we were so fearful of a possible negative reaction that we didn't put my photograph on the literature until 6 months into the campaign. Now, that may have been a sort of an overreaction, but I want to give you the progress from that. That was 85, 86. Never elected a person of color. 20 years later, I was elected to the highest office in Montgomery County. And I ran 7 races in Montgomery County, 4 for county council at large, 3 as county executive. And I literally did not ever have a close race. That was the response of the people of Montgomery County, the good of that, despite the challenges. And I never had for any of those offices, I think the African-American population may have been between 6% and maybe 13 or 14% through all of that time. And so that's why I'm so mixed about African-American history, because I've seen the greatness of this country, this community. And now I see some of the horrors that we've talked about over the years.
Yeah, well, the people in our community have always responded to your integrity, your decency, and your fundamental commitment to the public interest and the common good. And so you've been a remarkable figure in our politics for everybody. And you're a great figure, obviously, in African-American history, and future generations will come to study your career. But we can't talk about you in the past tense, Ike Leggett, because you're still up to doing so much good trouble, as my friend John Lewis used to say. You're on the Board of Regents of the University of Maryland. You're the head of the AIB. Tell us about those 2 assignments and what you're working on now, just so people understand what you're still engaged in.
Well, I'm fortunate to be on both of those boards, the Board of Regents that oversees the 15 institutions throughout the state of Maryland. And we have a wonderful, wonderful public education from K through 12. But we've fallen back a little bit from the high esteem that I think the students had, or that we had, for public education over the years. And so the General Assembly passed the basic recommendations of the current commission, the Blueprint for Excellence in Maryland. But they also set up what I call a super board with the authority to possibly dispense and oversee a huge array of funds and matrix that we need now in order to bring us up to the standards we want. And so I was made chair of that 7-person board. We've just been confirmed by the General Assembly, and we're now about to get to work and to decide how we're going to dispense the money, how we're going to determine those metrics, and to make certain that the students in Montgomery County and throughout the entire state of Maryland have the excellent education opportunities that we want to see in this great state. And so I'm so excited about that. And that continues in many ways a lot of the work that I've had, because through public education, support of outstanding teachers and others to help me get to where I am today. And so this is a matter of giving back in that regard.
Well, I'm going to close on a question on that theme, Ike, because you and I have many things in common. I've learned so much from you over the years, but one of the things we have in common is that both of us began our careers as law professors, you at Howard and me at American. And I bump into your former students all the time, like I bump into my former students all the time. I'm wondering to what extent you think teaching and education will continue to be a part of your career as you're looking into the next couple of decades.
Well, someone at one time described me as a county executive who was a law professor. I said, no, that's not correct. I was a law professor who happened to be a county executive. I'm always a teacher, and I'm also always a person who learns. And I've learned a great deal. And I've learned from your leadership, your model. In fact, I had an interview, not an interview, but an introduction of you that I made for the Alpha Breakfast. And a number of people have asked me, and I really sent that introduction around because I think it reflects so much of what I believe about you, what I believe about our country, and the great work that you're doing. I am a law professor who happened to be doing public services in other venues.
Well, I will echo you in that, Ike Leggett. I will thank you for your remarkable decades of continuing public service, and I salute you as our local hero this week, and I hope everybody will congratulate Ike Leggett as we recognize him as a local hero today and yesterday and going into the future. Thank you, Ike.
Something else that we have in common too, that is we married great women.
This we did, and we'll stand by them. Thank you so much.